Hi, I'm Andrew Bird. I'm an editor, and this is the Cinematography podcast.
The following podcast contains explicit language. You're listening to the Cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image and the people who make it happen. Coming to you from the world headquarters of Hot Rod Cameras in Hollywood, California, are your hosts, Ben Rock and Ilya Friedman.
Well, hello, Ben Rock.
Hey, Ilya Friedman, what's up?
Hey, it is time for another fine episode of the Cinematography Podcast. That's what's up.
Well, of course it is, because otherwise, why are we looking at each other? We hate each other.
Hey, Ben, who is on our show today?
Today we have Andrew Bird, who is the editor of the Oscar-nominated foreign language film The Seed of the Sacred Fig. And although, as we sit here the morning after the Oscars, it did not win. The Seed of the Sacred Fig, but I thought it was an amazing and powerful movie. And our mutual friend, Zubi Mohammed, had reached out to us. He's like, I was talking to this editor, Andrew Bird, who I guess he's friends with, who edited this film called Seed of the Sacred Fig, and the story of the making of this film is nuts. And Zubi could not have been more right. This movie was made in Iran, and the director has been repeatedly arrested for making movies. I clarified this, by the way, with Andrew. It's like he didn't get arrested for knocking over a liquor store in Tehran. He got arrested for making movies that upset the government. It's an interesting movie because it takes place all in Iran. So, like, as a filthy Westerner, I am completely unfamiliar with every location and like what their world looks like. And it's kind of it's such a good movie, and it kind of becomes kind of an interesting thriller by the end. I was really blown away.
I'm really excited to see this. It is now streaming on VOD, and so I'm glad I'm going to get to see it. I'm glad that you saw it and did the interview because that's fantastic. I know Zubi and you have both been talking about this to me now for a while, and I'm really excited. I am a little bummed it didn't win, of course, because I was excited that that perhaps we would have this winner on the podcast, and but I have heard that it was really difficult to see. Like, this has not been until like the last week or so, I guess, when streaming started, it was really hard to see it because there wasn't a distributor. Now I think Neon has signed on, and so it is going to get a much wider release.
And it's interesting because it's not as a movie, it's not the riskiest movie you'll ever see. But what's fascinating about it is that they were basically making it in secret in Iran, and then Andrew was in Germany, and they were sending him the footage, and so like he had. Usually an editor and a director have lots of one-on-one time to massage the thing. And Andrew was kind of, not that he didn't get notes or direction, but he was left to his own devices. He didn't even know when footage was going to be coming in. And it's just a fascinating story. And to me, it's one of those stories of like, just the fact that it got nominated for an Oscar, I think is a big deal. Because it's an important story, but it's almost as important that it even exists at all. And I think I don't want it to sound like homework. This is an entertaining movie, but it's got implications, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. Because it has a lot to say about authoritarianism and like what it does to average people. But it also, by the end, is kind of a crime thriller. There's a lot to recommend this movie.
Yeah, not very topical right now at all. But okay.
Can I point out, by the way, I don't want to get mad about this, but Oscar winner, the winner for best animated feature was Flow, and it was also nominated as best foreign language. And Flow is amazing, by the way. It's a great film, totally worth seeing, but there is nary one word spoken in the whole thing. How can it be a foreign language film if no one speaks? I just wanted to put that out there.
So what you're saying is it should just be called best foreign film, not foreign language film?
It's also nominated for best animated feature, which I think is where it belongs. And it's excellent. And I think it's on Max now streaming. Definitely worth seeing. Check out Flow. Yeah. Beautiful, brilliant animated film done in Blender, by the way, the free 3D software that anyone listening to this can download for free, go on YouTube and learn how to use, and then you too can win an Oscar. And when you do, I want you to thank me for recommending you do that, because you wouldn't have done it if I hadn't said that right now, right?
And now, Close Focus.
I think that's a wonderful segue. We really should make our close focus the Oscars, because there were some surprises and some interesting things, and boy, some really, really great heartfelt speeches and gratitude on display. So Ben, should we? Where do you want to start? Should we start with Lol? Should we start with Mr. Crawley?
Let's start by congratulating Lol Crowley, who we had on the show for The Brutalist, which it's just a beautiful, brilliant film shot in freaking VistaVision. And we could probably link to our episode with Lol that dropped probably about a month or so ago. But I believe it's his first time being nominated, and it's a beautiful film, and I'm glad that hopefully the Oscars will get more people to check it out. By the way, can I make a personal confession? This is Oscar adjacent.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to make a personal confession. And that's that we didn't end up interviewing the DP of Conclave. I went out and saw it in the theater the week it came out, and I just hated it. I just hated it. And I never said this on the podcast because, I don't want to say that, right? And everyone I talked to, ending recently with our Janelle Riley thing, off mic, Janelle was like, "What's your problem? That movie's awesome." And so I had to fly to Florida about 2 weeks ago, and when I did, it was one of the things on the Delta thing. I'm like, okay, fine. I will give Conclave another chance. And all I have to say is, I don't know what my freaking problem was. Conclave is a masterpiece. I loved it. I don't know what horrible ass mood I was in when I saw Conclave. It's beautiful. The cinematography is amazing. The performances are great. It looks good. It's a great script. Every performance is so great. Another word about it for me.
I still haven't seen it. And I got to say, I found that the reviews had been polarizing, but the number one most polarized review was you. So I guess I have to now erase that from the list.
It's freaking brilliant. It's on I think it's on Peacock.
Yeah, it is.
Now streaming. It might still be in theaters. It would be worth seeing on the big screen. It's gorgeous. Ralph Fiennes is amazing. Everyone's amazing. And I almost kind of feel like, dang, it got robbed at the Oscars.
Okay.
Because I don't think it won anything.
Yeah, I don't think it won anything either. At least not that I can think of. It got lots of nominations. So
yeah. I mean, look, getting nominated for any of these films is a big deal. So everyone, and I know we said this in our cinematography roundtable with Janelle Riley, that all of these people were amazing. I was curious to see if Ed Lockman would finally bring home the gold, because he's just been doing amazing work for so many years. But it felt like the night mostly belonged to Anora and The Brutalist.
It really did. And kudos for Anora, an indie film. Kudos for Drew Daniels. It was so great talking to him. I mean, look, Drew Daniels just shot the best picture of the year, award winner from the Oscars. Yeah. And I think that when you get success stories from The Brutalist and from Anora, these are relatively low budget, independent movies, not really made inside the stereotypical studio system. All these people's careers are going to take big jumps forward now. It's huge.
I mean, Anora was I didn't realize this, even lower budget than The Brutalist. Yeah. It was like a $6 million movie, and The Brutalist, I think, was $8 million. And it's a little shocking to me that those movies cleaned up so much against, such higher, bigger budget competition. And I'll go down fighting saying I feel like Alice Brooks should have gotten at least a nomination for Best Cinematography, but it's hard to argue that The Brutalist wasn't an amazing looking film, really well done.
We didn't talk too much about Sing Sing using this new, essentially financing and payment system where everyone was getting essentially equal shares based on the hours they committed. And of course, Coleman Domingo getting the, best actor nomination for that role. I think that we are on an interesting precipice right now. And I believe that these Oscars might actually help usher in sort of a next wave of independent features. So, which
God, one can only hope.
I mean, you couldn't have asked for sort of a better turnout in a lot of ways, especially for like the awards that were won. So I'm cautiously optimistic, especially, you know, with the sort of downturn that the industry has had, at least as far as Los Angeles goes. I'm feeling like maybe there might be some independent money, maybe there might be some independent producers, maybe there might be some stuff that try to pick up and capitalize. In years past, when independent films have done well at the Oscars, it seems like it's I hate to use words like trickled down, but it's influenced like the next year of production. It's influenced more, you know, all this stuff takes a long time. It takes so long to get any movie made, but the conversations that are happening now in early 2025 might really be affecting what we're seeing in 2026. And it might be a lot more independent stuff. And I'm cautiously optimistic about that.
I want to say something that kind of blew me away, which was Sean Baker, I think, is historically the person who has won the most Oscars in one night.
Yeah.
He won it for writing, directing, editing, and then his film won Best Picture.
I think that's 5. Yeah.
And I just want to say that he had a different speech prepared for each one.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah.
Like, what if he had just got original screenplay and nothing else, which could have happened? Like, he had more to say. And I was impressed, because I was like, if it were me, you know, me winning all the Oscars I win, but like probably by the third one I would have been like, hey everybody, I said thanks to everyone, bye, thank you for this, bye. And you know, it's like he had like an important like soapbox he got on each time. I was really impressed.
I was impressed as well, and I loved his shout out for theaters. I loved his shout out for cinema. I loved his shout out for, you know, perseverance and creativity. I thought all of his stuff was great. So he was humble and grateful, and it was a great show. And Adrian Brody's speech, holy crap, my goodness, what a! I mean, I know this is his second win, but damn, did he?
Well, it's after his first win, you could say he had almost a career downturn after that, and it has taken him this long to come back.
That's true.
And with this, he's like back on top again. I did notice that like there was some controversy when he won the first time, that like he sort of kissed Halle Berry apropos of nothing. And I noticed this time he's just a kissy guy. He was kissing everybody. He gave Guy Pearce a kiss. He gave everybody a kiss. And he was just a kissy one. Kissy
I
dude.
heard that he and Halle Berry, I didn't see the picture, recreated their famous kiss at the Oscars this year. So I heard there's a photo. That's what I heard. So I heard there's a photo floating around of them doing that. So, which is funny. So.
Yeah, no, I thought his speech was great. I thought Zoe Saldana's speech was amazing and inspirational. And nobody slapped anybody. There was at least zero controversy.
There was like a 50-50 shot someone was getting slapped, and there was no slaps. Conan O'Brien.
Lithgow would have been the one to do the slapping. I thought Conan O'Brien did a really good job hosting. I love Conan O'Brien. If I have one regret, it's that I wish that The Substance had won something. But the fact that a horror movie that goes that far out there as it does got nominated for that many things, you know, it's pretty outstanding. I thought Demi Moore was going to take home the gold for Best Actress, and you know, it's like you can't really argue it. And also, she won a Golden Globe, and also, you know, she did a great job. Just being nominated is such a big deal, and I think being nominated for a genre film that steers so far into the genre it's just an unusual thing to have happen.
I really enjoyed The Substance. I just watched it the night before last, and
you hadn't seen it yet?
I saved it right up until the awards, and
I'd seen it enough for both of us.
Say, we have to give Janelle Riley credit too, because she called it. Mikey wins Best Actress, and she called it, you know, in our thing. So yeah.
Well, Janelle might have been doing this for a minute. She might have like a few decades under her belt of doing this. She's
got a couple of insights for sure. So Ben, why don't we get to the interview with Andrew Bird?
The Cinematography Podcast Interview.
So Andrew Bird, thank you so much for coming on the Cinematography Podcast. Like I was just saying off mic, we usually talk to cinematographers. We have talked to other people, editors, visual effects supervisors, whatever. But this movie that you edited, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which, by the way, I, even before we get going, a friend of our podcast and a really close personal friend of mine, Zubi Mohammed, would not stop telling me about how amazing this film was and how important it would be for us to talk to you. So I want to, before we even get going, I want to give a shout out to Zuby because this movie is incredibly powerful, and I hope more people see it. I think it's really an amazing piece of work, top to bottom. So uh, for our listeners, there's kind of a unconventional way that this film was put together. The director is in Iran, and he's basically filming the movie in secret and getting you like chunks of footage to edit. Can you talk about like how you were brought onto the film and what the process of editing it was for you?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks on my part too to Zubi for putting us together on this, and thank you for your interest in the film and in
Of
my
course.
work on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I got involved in this project because I knew Mohammad, the director. Mohammad and I had previously worked together on another film of his, which was called Manuscripts Don't Burn.
Mhm.
This was in 2012, 2013, and that was also a film that was shot in secret. Mohammed has been unable to shoot freely in Iran for many, many years. And that was a film where all the exterior footage was shot in Iran and all the interiors were shot in a studio in Germany.
Mm.
I'm from England, but I live in Germany. I live in Hamburg, and a mutual friend put Mohammed and I in touch with each other. We met, we got on very well, and we worked together on that film. And then he went back to Iran at some point and was unable to leave the country again and made his two subsequent films. I think it was two or three subsequent films in Iran completely. And then in sometime in late 2023, he reached out to me to ask if I would be available to work on this new film that he was planning. I think it was like early December that I got a version of the script, which was an early version. It was the version that they'd used to try and get financing together, and that was in English. And I read that, and we phoned, and he at that point in time he wasn't really sure when he was going to be able to shoot. He was just hopeful that he would be able to soon. I think everything was very much in the air. And then towards the end of the month, I phoned with one of his producers, and I was told, okay, yeah, well, they're probably going to be starting shooting within a week. And all of a sudden, this thing then just started happening. But I think he was kind of,
And
I
also you're
didn't
hired.
know. Yes, yeah, that too. Yeah. I was very fortunate that I actually had the time that I was available. I only had a brief period that I was free because I knew I would be starting a new film in April. And I believe they started shooting sometime between Christmas and New Year 2023. Um, and I didn't actually start getting footage until the middle of January, something like that. So
Oh wow.
the timing on this thing was incredibly tight. Um, we also had the aim of being finished and having the film ready for Cannes should they take us.
So I know that this is probably more of a question for Mohammed, and probably a lot of my questions might be something that he would be able to answer more. But it's like he's making movies in secret in Iran, which is not known for being a freewheeling liberal place where artists can go tell their stories as freely as possible. Um, how is he able to do that? How is he able to do it without getting thrown in jail?
Yeah, I really don't know. I
Mm.
honestly don't know. And there's a lot of footage in this film where I'm astonished to this day how he managed to shoot it,
Mm.
working under the constrictions that they're working under. I really don't know how he does it.
I assume that they have Iranian movies and kind of rhythms and ways that they cut them together and the way that they look and like a way that they're expected to be seen. And also, I assume that on some level, this movie is meant to be seen, especially by people in Iran or at least expats from Iran, because like it's such a strong even though it's a personal story, it's kind of got larger allegorical implications. So, did you as an editor look at Iranian cinema to see like,
I have over the years, I watch a lot of movies and I have
mm,
seen a lot of Iranian movies. I'm kind of familiar with the style. It does tend to be a style with, I think, with longer shots, with a much slower pacing than any Western film would have.
yeah,
Um, and I have to say, it was something that was constantly on my mind when I was working on this film, whether I was actually Iranian enough in the style that I was cutting it.
yeah,
And there's no way of kind of really getting together with Mohammed to talk about that. I mean, we did the whole period of editing this film, I was entirely on my own because he
oh
was in
really?
one and he was in the process of shooting. I started work on it while they were still shooting, and I was working on the footage that they were able to upload for me on through various, I don't know, the passage of these files, how they got to me. I didn't really need to know too much.
Oh my god. I mean, to me, that's like when I read up about this movie, the making of this movie. It's like a heist film, except for the heist was of making the film. Like it feels like a heist, like it's being made in secret, and you're getting this footage, in ways that you don't know how the footage is showing up, and you're like, was there communication though with Muhammad? Was he able to look at edits and give you any kind of feedback, or is there a streaming service like a Vimeo or Dropbox or something that he could get in Iran to look at what you were doing?
There was absolutely no way that we could have any kind of live contact with each other except by phone. Um, we did have regular phone calls, um, and I would be sending him footage once I'd edited some scenes. When we started out, I think he was very concerned about the language aspect. He was very
Mm.
worried that I wouldn't be able to deal with the Farsi, with the Persian, and I don't speak a word of it. But I have actually edited a number of films in languages that I don't speak, so I wasn't particularly fazed by the prospect of working on this film. But I was initially very reluctant to send him anything. I'm always a bit reluctant when I'm still working out what the language of the film's going to be in the edit, to show stuff to directors too soon before I really feel confident about it myself. But at some point, I had to kind of start sending him scenes. And that kind of worked. It would be, I would send it to the producer, and however the producer got it to him, he got it to him. And then Mohammed would watch that and he would come back to me with feedback. But there was never any kind of direct connection with the image when we were speaking to each other. It was always a phone call. Mohammed doesn't speak brilliant English. He speaks a bit, and he
Mm.
tried really hard, but it usually ended up with the first half of the sentence being in English and the rest of it being in Persian, and the other guy on the phone who was interpreting the what Mohammed was saying would then try and translate. So they were long phone calls,
Mm.
um, and but we did talk about it, sure.
I mean, even is there a trickiness about even talking on the phone to people in Iran? I mean, like I don't know. Like it seems. Uh, I grew up in America, and Iran has always sort of been like this walled off thing that we're not supposed to know anything about. And actually, that was one of the most surprising things about that movie to me was like seeing people in Iran. It's like people living in houses just like my house, and like it's a thoroughly modern kind of Western looking city. Tehran, the exteriors that you see, and I cop to my own ignorance about that as an American, like we just aren't shown what it's like there.
Hmm. Well, I mean, we were able to talk on the phone. It wasn't an open line. It was through a secure service.
Mm.
I won't say exactly how it worked, but
Okay. Yeah.
we felt safe enough to talk on the phone. There didn't seem to be any restrictions on communication there. I think there was while they were shooting, there was the constant threat of being discovered.
Yeah.
Was one kind of very big burden on them. And I did received notification at one point that they were stopping shooting for a few days because they'd seen somebody on the street corner who was kind of hanging out there too often, and they
Mm.
suspected they might be being observed. So they stopped the shoot for a few days, and then once the guy had disappeared, they went back and continued shooting. Um, but um,
I have enormous curiosity about the fact that you're sort of given dispatches of footage, and I'm sure that they must have come with some kind of direction for you, but you're not speaking the language. So how did you get over the language barrier of that?
the footage wasn't really coming with very much accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
There was basically I was receiving camera proxies to work with. They weren't uploading large files.
Mm.
The files were as small as they could keep them, um, because the internet connection isn't so great. And I had a little list which just basically said the file name of the camera file and the related name of the sound file so that my assistant could actually sync up the footage. Otherwise, there were no additional notes. Mohammed does actually shoot quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think generally, if I look at the footage, look back on it, he probably had somewhere between about 15 and 18 takes of any particular setup was about average. Some setups had like something like 38 takes. And he would maybe mark on the list somewhere between 3 and 5 takes that were his kind of favorites, but with no notes, with no information for me as to why they were his favorites, or
Yeah.
what he didn't like about any of the other shots. So I was kind of pretty much on my own with that stuff as well. Yeah.
What?
And I
Okay.
never really what I never knew was whether they'd actually finished shooting a scene or not.
Oh,
So
really?
I'd be getting footage from a scene, like say scene 3 in the film, and I'd have like 5 different takes, 5 different setups, and 2 weeks later I'd get like another 3 from the same scene, but I never knew they were coming. And that kind of happened fairly regularly. So there was never really any information flow at all. So a lot of it was guesswork, and with the language, a lot of it was guesswork too. Um, as I said, I had the original version of the script in English, and I could use that to subtitle
Mm-hmm.
as much as I. Sometimes you can kind of see what the actors are saying. You kind of, if you compare the line in the script with the acting, you can tell that's the line. It must be the line. It's pretty easy to tell even without the language which performance is good and which isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't really need to understand the language for that. And a lot of it, yeah, guesswork, a little bit of Google Translate. I'd kind of hold that to the speaker and hope that it would pick up some word, and translate that into English for me so that I could make an educated guess as to which line of the script that must be. But there are some lines in the film that I really didn't know what people were saying until I was sitting watching the final subtitled version
Oh,
in the
really? Like, was it like colloquialisms that you're not going to find easily
yeah,
translated?
yeah, yeah. And that I did find quite challenging, I must say, because it's a long movie. We wanted to kind of try and keep it as short as possible, and very often, as you know, you've edited stuff yourself, so you'll often find that in the script will maybe repeat stuff that you find is redundant when you see it on screen with the way the actors are playing any
Yeah.
particular scene. And it was very difficult for me to even make suggestions as to what we could possibly take out because I didn't really know exactly what they were saying. Um, and at some point, we had to get somebody in. Somebody came in and spent a day with me in the edit. But that's another thing that wasn't easy to put together because of the security issues.
Oh.
Because
And
Mohammed didn't want just anybody coming in. I know enough people who speak Persian to have asked some people to come by, but they were people who Mohammed didn't know, and we really worked with the utmost secrecy, so nobody was allowed to know that we were actually working on the film.
And you were cutting it in Germany, right?
I was cutting it in Germany. Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, like, what brought you to Germany as an editor? Because the like looking through your filmography, the one thing that like really jumped out at me was a movie you did. I think it was in 2003 called Head On that I saw at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. It was a really powerful. But like, most of your stuff is German. What brought you to work in Germany?
I moved to Germany. I studied German language
Hmm.
at university, and I moved to Germany after I'd finished studying, and I had nothing to do with the film business whatsoever at that
Hmm.
time. It's something I started working in editing when I'd been in Germany for about 10 years.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, yeah. So that's where I kind of learned to edit, and I never went to film school. I had an editor teach me.
Oh, really? What drew you to editing?
Um, I think I was always drawn to film, and I used to make my own films with my Super 8 camera, and I would
Hmm.
do. Remember Super 8? I don't know
Oh,
whether
yeah.
people know what
I
it was.
I love Super 8. I have I
Um,
should probably put them in the background. I have like 10 Super 8 cameras. I love them.
yeah, cool. Yeah, I still have one too. And I used to I did everything on them. I did the camera, I did the editing, I acted in them, I directed
Mm.
them, whatever. And I thought that editing was something that I'd be interested in. And I worked for many years as a translator. I do speak fluent German,
Mm.
and I got a bit bored with that, and I wanted to do something else. I needed a new challenge, and felt that film editing might be something that would interest me. And that's been a while now, and it still does. It's kept me occupied.
Well, yeah, and this one certainly sounds like it kept you on your toes.
It did, yeah. I mean, really the responsibility was just so great with this one as well, because it was it was always clear what the people in Iran were really putting at risk in working on this film. Not only Mohammed himself, but also all the actors, all the crew. There was a lot at stake for them, and sitting far away from that and not being directly involved, but having basically the responsibility to bring this thing to the screen in the end. Yeah, it was quite a weight, and you really feel you really need to do justice to all the risks that the people are taking there.
Like I feel like watching the movie there's kind of like three threads kind of intersecting, and the first one is like the very personal thread of this family, the main character, his two daughters, his wife, and kind of the the weight of kind of holding a family together. And I feel like the weight of, because of the nature of his struggle, in the movie the main character is made a judge and then is like forced to approve deaths for for prisoners that he doesn't necessarily agree with. And there's kind of the struggle with his with all the women in his life. And then there's like a Chekhov's gun of in this movie, literally, quite literally, where he's handed a gun at the beginning of the movie to protect himself. And it's interesting because we're so inured to seeing movies with gun violence, but the gun really feels like almost a character in the movie. And then there's the third, and that concludes, I think, in the third act, which I don't want to ruin it for people, but I would say it becomes not a different movie, but I feel like it takes a turn for almost a it's almost a horror movie. It's almost a monster in the house kind of a conclusion. It's really powerful though, because unlike and I'm a big horror fan, but like unlike a lot of horror movies, like the monster in the house is so personal. Like the it's so conflicted. You and the director and everyone have gone to such great lengths to humanize this person, and then there's this massive political undercurrent of the whole thing. I don't know if you would say it was theme or subtext or whatever, but it never goes away. And there's footage of real protests in the movie. And I'm just curious, for you as an editor, how what did you consciously try and kind of juggle those three balls in the air and make sure, like, because I almost feel like you could easily have steered it as an editor more into either one of those three things. It could have become, you could turn this into a straight genre film if you wanted to, like almost a thriller, like almost a straight thriller and nothing else, or you could make it more of a political movie, or it feels like a very naturalistic character study. What did you have to do to kind of balance those elements?
Well, I think it was always kind of, for me, the shocking thing about the story that we're telling is really the story of the family, and the way that this distrust, which is so widespread in that society, finds its way into the family structure, and there is really no one you can trust. It was always clear that our focus had to be on the family, and we had to kind of keep all four of the characters in the family in the story all the time, because they all have a role to play in that.
Mm.
I don't know really whether you could actually say that any one of them is the central figure of the movie, perhaps the mother, but
Mm-hmm.
and it was also very important to kind of keep the father human, as you say.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's kind of caught up in his beliefs. He's caught up in the job he's doing. He's weak in a way, and he's trying to be strong. But we didn't want to kind of just make him evil,
Yeah.
or appear that way. He's a guy like you and me, and he's struggling with what he has to deal with, both at work and at home. And I think that was kind of our central line, and we always wanted to kind of stick to that. And I think the political's in that anyway. And as far as the whole demonstration stuff went, I think another aspect that was always of concern to us was the knowledge that we had that the film was being shot under such restrictive circumstances. And we knew that the first half of the film, at least the first half of the film, was going to be largely in the apartment.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to we didn't want it to feel like a film that was shot in restricted conditions. So we were always keen to find ways to get out a little bit, whether it was with the actors in the car, the characters in the car, driving the car a bit, um,
There's like a
or any other
restaurant
way.
scene towards the beginning, and even that,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
thought that I mean, like from a cultural standpoint, it's like it's always interesting to see like what does a restaurant look like in a country that that my culture has been like denied all access to. We don't see it, and it's like, oh yeah, pretty much like our restaurants. You got a waiter, you got a table, you got seats. But but there, I mean, like to me, that kind of stuff kept me throughout the whole movie, kind of leaning in, like looking at like locations and seeing items that I don't know what they are.
But to go back to the cell phone footage,
Mm-hmm.
which is also kind of a big element in the film. This is something that wasn't actually in the script. It's something that Mohammed came up with at some time during the edit. On one phone call, he suggested maybe using that. Wanted to know what I felt about the idea of it, and I was very keen on it. I thought it would give some kind of authenticity to, or greater authenticity to the story. And then Mohammed had like somebody send me something like 400 different clips of cell phone footage from the
Oh
demonstrations,
wow.
and actually left it entirely up to me how to use them. And that kind of goes back a little bit to your question earlier about the style of the film, and the Iranianness of my editing, or whether it was or not. Because I was constantly asking myself about that, and I was always concerned that I wasn't maybe being Iranian enough in the way that I was cutting it. Maybe I was cutting too much, too frequently. Um, uh, and with the cell phone footage, it was really down to me to kind of interpret what I could read from those videos. Um, and I think that was probably quite a smart move on Mohammed's part, because I knew nothing about them. So I wasn't able to read into them what possibly a local Iranian person would be able to read into them,
Yeah.
because I don't know any of the locations. I don't know any of the people involved. I don't know any of the uniforms. I had to kind of choose stuff that was going to read more universally.
Hmm.
to a Western audience as well. And I think that generally applied for the whole story, that I was always keen to have stuff that we in the West would also be able to understand as well as people in
Well, I mean, that
Iran
might explain also
or
why, you know,
in that culture.
why you would be chosen to edit this over somebody who was steeped in the culture, because you know you're kind of finding the parts of this that you find that grab your attention, and you know maybe that does open it up to a more universal audience.
I think that really does happen. Yeah,
Mm.
or has happened. Yeah.
That's pretty. That I mean, it's such a crazy story, and I'm you know like, sort of sitting here wondering like what has been the fallout from the movie in terms of from the Iranian government. Like, did all the people involved in this film have to leave, or like what? Like, you know, I mean, like if I were editing footage of like a protest, I would be a little concerned. Like, are their faces going to be recognizable? Are these people going to be in trouble? And obviously they filmed themselves and put it on the internet, so they're not that concerned. But like you know, like is there an extra layer, I guess, of responsibility in putting these images together?
I think there is, yeah, but I mean, the cell phone footage, it was out there. It was
Yeah.
out in the world. None of that was anything that we were kind of putting out. We were the first to do it. It wasn't like that at all. That was all out
Yeah.
there.
No, that
But
makes sense.
for the people involved in front of the camera, in the film crew, the actresses, sure, that has consequences for them, and several of them have actually left the country. The two actors who play the parents in the
Hmm.
film are, I believe, still in Iran. I'm not sure what kind of punishment or trouble they're
Yeah.
subjected to. I know they have been interrogated. I know that the mother was due to be on a panel at the Rotterdam Film Festival this week, and she wasn't given permission to leave the country. I've heard from Mohammed that he anticipates nothing actually happening until after the Oscars because it might be bad publicity for Iran. Um, I don't know. I really feel for the people who are there, but the ones who left the country are all young people, with the exception of Mohammed.
Hmm.
I guess it's a little bit easier for somebody who's in their early 20s or early 30s to pack up and leave, a lot easier than for somebody who's lived their whole life in Iran and would have to just like leave with a suitcase.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that must be.
Did Muhammad leave too?
Mohammed had to leave. You spoke earlier a little bit about a jail sentence. He had spent time in jail a few years ago. I think he was in jail for a year, and he had another trial, which took place while he was actually shooting the film, and the sentence was then passed down, and that was, I believe, an 8 year jail sentence,
Oof.
plus 50 lashes of the whip.
What?
Um, yep. And
And this is like he didn't go knock over a liquor store. This is for making movies.
this is for making movies. Yeah, this is for
Ah.
making. Yeah, but I mean, they say you're betraying the country or whatever. You're a traitor to the country's beliefs or whatever.
What kind of movies like get made in Iran that are you know that pass muster with the government? What are the kinds of movies that they do make?
Um, I'm not sure that they're. I think if you're doing, you can be critical of the government if you hide it in metaphor.
Hmm.
And I think if you look back on Muhammad's earlier films, which I think are really beautiful works, they're much more metaphorical than the ones he's making today. He's much more clear and outspoken and overtly political in his more recent films. And I think that's the way it kind of works there. You're able to conceal your criticisms in a more poetic language, maybe, or a more metaphoric, in more metaphoric images. Films do get made, good films do get made, but it's I think it's a struggle for anyone.
Hmm. Yeah, because like this had almost like a Spike Lee kind of a vibe to me in that it's telling a personal story, but the politics are right there. Like it's not hiding it. And you as an outsider, did you have to educate yourself as to what those exact politics were, or were you mostly just following the script that you had?
I was mostly following the script that I had. I mean, I've been aware of Mohammed's situation in Iran for many years since we first met. So I'm a little aware of what's going on there. And I also, of course, followed the protests like everybody else did around the world. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I have a bunch of Iranian friends, so I do kind of hear a lot. Um, but yeah, no, I followed the script. We talked
Mhm.
about a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. I would ask him, but I mean, what I really wasn't aware of are just kind of aspects that even in a film like this, the women who are acting and if they're in the family's flat and they're in front of the camera, even there without a hijab on, they are that is a criminal act
Wow.
because they're showing themselves.
Well, yeah, and the movie has like kind of a lot of uh not intimate but like personal scenes of like them in their home, just the way that they would be in their home. And I assume that when you're at your home you can dress however you want when the doors are closed. And it just felt like, oh yeah, again it was a moment of like, yeah, just like everywhere else, you know. And wow, that's messed up. I don't even know what to say about it. Like with
I can remember also there was one moment where I was uh, I received one file that I received was a reshoot of one particular take with the mother and the father in the bedroom, and it was just like one take that they'd reshot 3 weeks later. And I had no, I mean, there was no comment on it or anything. I had no idea what it was. And at some point, I asked Mohammed on the phone, like, what's the deal with that shot? Is that the one you want me to use? Or why have you sent that? Why did you re reshoot it? Because I don't see really any major difference between that and the one that I've been using up to now. And his response was, yeah, there's not so much difference, but the actress wasn't happy. And for her, the difference would be if you use the old one, she might get a 10-year jail sentence.
oh my god.
And if you use the new one, she won't. And I still don't know why. I think maybe because she touched the father and touched his cheek or something
Oh my
in the
god.
but I have no idea why it was, but that was the reason he gave me. So yeah,
That's intense.
it is. Yeah, yeah. And at
Yeah.
some point, as you say, I mean, there was a point where Mohammed then actually had to leave the country because there was the threat of this jail sentence being of him being put into jail. I believe the authorities had asked his lawyer for information about his location, which was a sign that they were kind of coming to get him. And within a couple of hours, he had to decide he was going to leave the country, which he then did. And this was during the final phase of the edit. Really, we still had a few weeks to go, but not really too long. And suddenly Mohammed was like on the run and nobody really knew where he was. I guess a few people did, but I had no awareness of where he was. I just knew he was leaving the country. Had no idea whether he was safe, no idea whether he was actually going to make it out alive. Um, so yeah, that adds a bit to the responsibility as well, where you kind
Yeah.
of think, gosh, what happens if he doesn't make it? But it was clear that we were going to have to finish the film anyway. And thankfully, he made it out alive. He's safe. He got to Germany in time for
Well, I was going to ask you, why didn't he just come to Germany and help you finalize the edit? Was there a reason not to do that?
because he couldn't travel. He had no papers.
Oh,
He hasn't been under house arrest for the last 7 years, but his passport had been taken away, all his papers had been confiscated. So he wasn't able to leave the country. There was no
God.
way he was able to travel. So he had to cross the border illegally, and with the help of the German authorities, he made it to Germany, and he's now safe there. And unfortunately, he now has papers. He's able to travel. He's able to, travel with the film around the world,
Yeah.
play a part in the Oscar campaign, and yeah.
My God, it's just so intense. As an American, I don't really think of making a film as like a personal risk necessarily. Maybe you'll, go broke, but you're not, but like but looking at that movie and looking at this movie, it's like the people who are making this, like there's a fire in the belly. There's like this impetus to tell these stories that somehow supersedes their need to be safe. Like there's a message that they're trying to get out to the world that's more important than their personal safety. And it amazes me and inspire. I hope people find inspiration in it, because it's like every filmmaker I know is like, well, am I going to get off my ass and do blah blah blah? But it's like these are people who like not only did that, but did it at actual personal risk, at risk of jail time, at risk of God knows what. And the responsibility, if I had been sitting in your chair, of like being kind of the caretaker of that. What was that like for you?
I feel incredibly privileged to actually be part of this. I think it's when I started making films, it was kind of with this naive belief you could kind of maybe change something in the world with
Yeah.
with your art, and to be able to work on a film that possibly does make a little difference somewhere in the world. I feel it's an incredible privilege. So I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to do it. But yeah, sure, there's a responsibility. I'm just really happy that Mohammed made it out alive. I'm very happy they managed to get through the entire shoot. I'm happy
Yeah.
we managed to get the film finished, and everything beyond that has really it's been like the icing on the cake. The Cannes Festival was fantastic.
Yeah.
The
Oscars.
Oscars,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. It's wonderful, and the most wonderful thing is that people in the world are actually seeing this film, and I really
Well,
think Mohammed has something to say, and I think it's an important message, and I think it's great that people are getting to see it.
Well, and I mean, and also, I don't want people to listening to this to think that this is homework. This is a very compelling and often very entertaining and interesting and well acted and artfully made thing that I think if you are a lover of cinema, it's the kind of film that you would love to see. It's not like it's not it really is so well put together, which I think is that's on you. I obviously Mohammed was giving you notes and you were working with him, but like the fact that you were sort of on your own for the assembly of this film, that's got to be tough.
I'd really be curious to know what kind of film would have actually emerged had Mohammed and I been able to spend time together in the editing room.
Yeah.
I think there's some dynamic always emerges in the edit when you're sitting together in a room and you experiment with stuff and try things out. With this film, it was different. I was kind of on my own for it. I had to really
Was it like
learn to.
writing? Was it kind of lonely? Like you're writing a novel and you're just like, okay, where do I start?
It was weird because I mean normally you have a director with you or you're in very close contact with the director, so you're throwing ideas out there, and the director's throwing ideas out there, and then suddenly something new emerges, and you try stuff out and you look and see, does it work, does it not work? But sometimes that kind of leads you to places where you'd never have anticipated getting to.
Yeah.
um, and that all was lacking in this process because it just wasn't possible because we were in two separate countries.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, it just means that you kind of, or I in this particular case, I had to kind of rely on myself for that kind of dialogue. I had to really examine everything a lot more closely myself and see if it was really where I wanted it to be. It's a different process. It was enriching as well because it really gives you more confidence in your own decisions and your own instincts.
All right. Well, I think that that's a wonderful place for us to leave it. I think it is worth anyone hearing this to check it out. It's called The Seed of the Sacred Fig. It's a wonderful film, and I'll have my fingers crossed for you at the Oscars.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much.
All right, so that was Andrew Bird. Hey, that was great having you on the show. Thanks so much for being a part of this.
And seriously, check out Seed of the Sacred Fig. It is a powerful film.
Yeah, it's on VOD now. You can stream it.
It's powerful, and it's also entertaining. I just want to keep saying that because sometimes when I hear powerful film, I'm like, oh, it's homework.
You know what, though? I think it's also great supporting movies that some sort of political regime does not want to exist. So I think that, especially an authoritative, fascist regime, those are the movies you want to see. So anyway.
Absolutely. Slap a fascist. See Seed of the Sacred Fig. Yeah. Almost got that out of my mouth in one piece.
Well done.
Anyway.
So, Ben, it is bill paying time. We have to thank our fine friends over at Laowa, over at Venus Optics. Venus Optics, Laowa lenses, they make all kinds of lenses, not only for cinema, but also still photography and other real specialty stuff. They make macro lenses, they make probe lenses. Of course, this is a cinema-related show. I want to talk about a cinema-related lens, but one a little bit different than we usually talk about. We usually talk about PL lenses. We talk about anamorphic lenses. We talk about the lenses that are usually used by a lot of the people who we've got on the show. Well, breaking it up a little bit, because Laowa has got some really cool lenses they call the Argus T1 Cine series. And the Argus T1 series is, you'll never guess, Ben, T1. They're really, really fast. You can put a very little bit of light through these lenses and get a fully well-exposed image. And they make them in 3 different sensor coverage sizes. They make a micro four thirds, they make a super 35, and they make a full frame. Now, of course, if you get the full frame, it will work on all of these cameras. If you've got a super 35 camera, you can still use the full frame and it will cover those smaller formats. So you got a lot of different lens focal lengths, but if you're just going for the full frame, you got a nice set of 3. And those 3 lenses are not going to set you back very much money. They only cost, they cost between about $900 and $1,500, but it's like
you're kidding me. For a T1?
T1 lenses, yes, $899. There are a lot of the lenses. So,
oh my God.
I know. It's crazy. And
I thought you were going to say they don't set you back too much. There are only about $11,000 or something.
Not at all. So the Super 35 lenses I'm looking at right here, $899. They have an 18, a 25, and a 33. And each...
Do they come in all the mounts?
So the lenses are in various different mounts. And this is sort of the thing that makes it not so usual for most of the people who are involved in cinema, because PL or maybe LPL tend to be the dominant mounts. But for those out there who are using cinema lenses in mirrorless camera lens mounts, these are a really great option, especially if you need something fast. The T1 full frame lenses are available in E, RF, and Nikon Z. And they're $14.99 each for a T1 lens, which is just incredible. And it's a really cool look. If you move down to the Super 35 size, then they're only $8.99. And they're available also in all of those mounts, plus also the Fuji X mount. And these are super, super capable, mirrorless camera lenses that are incredibly fast and cine style with gears and whatnot. So we're going to put a link to them over at Hot Rod Cameras, because of course all of these lenses are available from Hot Rod Cameras. And if you are looking for something that's fast and it's got that really cool T1 sort of look, and you don't have a ton of money to spend, check them out. They're also available in a bundle, and you save a little bit of money when you do go with the 3 lens bundle. So you get all 3 focal lengths for either the micro four thirds, super 35, or the full frame.
And now, short ends.
All right, so Ben, it is our short end time of the show, if I can get the words. I was really close to saying close focus again, but then it was like my brain was like, nope,
wait. Only been doing it for 12 years.
You've already said that. You've already talked about it. So no, our short end time, where we talk about our pet obsession. We talk about what we are all about this week. What are you all about?
Well, there's been a massive changing of the guard in James Bond world. And it's funny because like some weeks you and I like, are struggling to come up with a good short end or a good close focus topic. And this week I feel like there's like 15 things I could talk about. But this one I find really interesting because basically probably everyone listening to this or the majority of people know this. But if you didn't, the James Bond franchise has been at MGM basically since the beginning. I think it's been at MGM the whole time. I could be wrong about that, but it has always been under the control of the same family. Originally, Albert Cubby Broccoli, and he, for the last, 20, 25 years, his daughter Barbara Broccoli has been in control of it. So what that meant was this family got to decide when there was going to be a new James Bond. When you say who's going to be the next James Bond, this is the family. These people were picking who James Bond was going to be, what stories they were going to tell. They were handpicking the directors, the stunt coordinators, the costume, everything. And MGM was sold recently to Amazon. And so Amazon has wrested control for the first time since James Bond has existed in movies. And so other than that, the Broccolis have had control over all of this. Iron fisted control. Who's your favorite Bond, by the way? Let me ask.
It's a good question. It's pretty tough to beat Daniel Craig. And I'm not just saying that because he and I bear more than a passing resemblance.
I've sometimes accidentally called you Daniel.
Especially when I have my shirt off. It's like, immediately people are like, Daniel Craig? No, it's, yeah. No.
Holy crap.
But no,
I get that all the time.
Daniel Craig is great. I really like Daniel Craig. I also liked GoldenEye. I thought Pierce Brosnan was right at the absolute peak perfect casting for that particular one. At various points, I've enjoyed all of the Bonds, and Sean Connery's done some fantastic work as Bond, and I even liked some Roger Moore in there. So, and Timothy Dalton. I know Timothy Dalton doesn't get a lot of.
Nobody likes Timothy Dalton because he was in the worst Bond movies, but I would argue he was one of the best actors ever to play the role.
Timothy Dalton is a freaking great actor, and I'm glad that we got him as Bond, even if it was for those movies. So
yeah, and it was only for 2 movies. I would agree with you. I think Daniel Craig was the whole package. I liked the most recent iteration of it, and Pierce. They're all great actors. I'm not here, but anyway, so Barbara Broccoli will have no one from the original team will be choosing the next James Bond. Jeff Bezos, or not, I bet, if you were Jeff Bezos and you owned Amazon, wouldn't you be like, I'm going to pick Bond? That seems like a billionaire kind of a thing to do.
How much you want to bet Jeff Bezos plays James Bond?
that would be weird. But I mean, like when you think about it, it's like, we talk about auteur theory in terms of directors and stuff like that. The Bond franchise, which is currently, I believe, 25 movies, is the responsibility of one family who has been very disciplined and very specific about how they chose what to do. Every single Bond movie was made by them. Now, for the first time ever, someone else is going to be doing it. And my prediction is it's going to suck. And here's my prediction too, is that, well, firstly, I feel like Amazon, I'm not trying to be mean about anybody's work, but The Rings of Power, which was Amazon making a $1 billion TV series spinoff of Lord of the Rings, let's just say it kind of underperformed. And then Exhibit B would be the flurry of Star Wars themed TV series on Disney Plus, which I would say some are great, some are not. But they have kind of cheapened the brand a little bit in that, like, there was a time when a new Star Wars movie was like, holy crap, stop everything you're doing, there's a new Star Wars movie out. And now it's like, oh yeah, they made a, Greedo has his own series now. Like, who gives a crap, right? We've been getting a Bond movie every 3 to 4 years,
something like that,
pretty dependably. It is not the tech bro mentality to wait 4 years from No Time to Die, which was like what, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the tech bro thing to be like, let's wait it out and like let everybody cleanse their palate and then hit everyone with a new Bond. It's more the way that these companies work, where it's like, we're going to get a James Bond TV series, and we're going to get, a Spectre TV series, and we're going to get, a prequel about M and a prequel about Q, and they're just going to beat it to fucking death. That's my opinion. Hopefully they don't do it.
Are we going to get a special about like Money Penny's YouTube cooking channel? Is that
Felix Leiter. It's going to be just a dramatic story about Felix Leiter's home life.
Okay. So what you're saying is that you are concerned that Amazon is going to ruin Bond. Basically, that's your
that is my concern.
Or just sort of like Star Wars-ify, as Disney has done. Cheapen the brand, lessen the impact.
I mean, it's not just Star Wars that Disney did it to. I feel like they also did it to
Marvel.
Marvel.
Sure. Those are...
And that was after Disney. I mean, it's like, you can't. Disney Plus is part of the overall company that made Marvel what it is now, anyway. So good for them. But I am just afraid of. I'm afraid that the choices are being taken out of the hands of the people who apparently have been pretty good at making those choices for these 60 plus years.
I don't know how much more money they had to shell out, but they probably had to shell out a lot more.
Yeah, well, I think that they and also apparently it is enough of a controversy that somebody at Amazon pissed off Barbara Broccoli by referring to Bond movies as content, and I'm like, hey, I'm not alone.
Yeah, well, there is a difference between movies, television, books, content, stuff that scrolls by ephemerally on a phone. These are not all the same thing. Radio is different, podcasts are different, but content has become the catch-all. Everything is now in that one bucket. Yeah,
I know. You and I are making some right now.
You know what? I'd like to think it's a podcast, but sure, you can use the C word.
No, we're making content. Let's make some content. That's what we said.
I do have something to get on my soapbox about.
Do it.
The Sony Burano was a maligned camera upon its release. People did not like its rolling shutter. They had other issues with it. Sony, to their credit, has worked hard, some might say tirelessly, to come up with a new firmware to address many of the issues of this camera. And over at Hot Rod, we've had a little bit of an early opportunity to play around with this new firmware. And I can say unequivocally, the camera is sort of like being reborn right now. It's almost like a Burano 2.0, which is fitting because it's a Burano 2.0 firmware. And coming up next week on Tuesday, March 11th, we are going to have a Sony Burano and subtly a Betty reflector event, kind of all in one. And you might be thinking, why would Betty reflectors and Sony Burano go together? Well, it just so happens that I'm in town and we're going to kind of do something fun. So people will come for the Sony firmware to find out what actually is completely changing this camera system that has frankly been doing some really, really good work out there. But I think there were people who were initially disappointed because they spent money and it didn't perform the way that they anticipated it would. And then the Betty reflector system, we are actually having a public LA demo, the first public LA demo on Saturday over at Local 80 at the Grip Studio Tech Expo that's going on, which is already sold out. I think there might be ways to get in. I think if you show up, you might still be able to get in. But on their website, they're saying on the studio carts, who are the organizers of the events, they're saying it's totally full, but it's going to be us and some other Grip and some lighting companies who are there. We're going to, because I'm in town, because we've got the stuff, we're going to do a little preview. We're going to bring a model in and we're going to have Sony Buranos set up and also have excellent Hot Rod clients who are there, who have been shooting with the Burano and using the Betty reflectors together, talking a little bit about this, including Noah Luke, who is a popular truck owner and DP in Los Angeles. He's got several little packages that he puts out in these trucks that have been working like crazy. I tell you, like, almost everyone out there who is got a 1 ton, a 2 ton package wishes they had the career and business that Noah Luke has. And he's going to be at Hot Rod talking about what he's been doing with the Burano and the Sony Burano and the Betty reflectors. And so it's going to be a kind of a fun, probably kind of smaller, more intimate event, but I thought it would be a good thing to get it together. So if you would like to have more information about attending the event on Tuesday and you're in Los Angeles, go to thecamnoir.com page, and we'll put links in there to all this stuff. Otherwise, it'll be in the social medias. It'll be in the social medias for everything. So
Excellent. So, like, what's the deal with the Burano? I don't know anything about this
So the
camera.
Burano is essentially sort of the image quality, more or less. It's a very, very similar sensor to the Sony Venice 2, which is their flagship, very expensive, high-end, sort of like, you know, their you know, Cadillac, their Bentley, their Rolls Royce of cameras, the Venice 2. They made one that is less than half the price, and they changed out the functions and the features a little bit, but we're talking about a huge portion of the image quality for a reduction in price. And there was also some artifacts like rolling shutter and some other things, and a lot of that has now been addressed actually with the new firmware updates, which is great. I think now that just about does it. Where can people find you if they want to look at, you know, they want to look you up outside of this show?
You can find me at benrock.com. I actually just renewed that website. Just had to pay to renew my website, which for longtime listeners, everyone will know what a giant fight it was for me to get that website. But yeah, you can go there. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm around. Reach out. Say hi. How about yourself, Ilya? Where can people find you?
Find me at Hot Red Cameras, hotredcameras.com. And of course, the Studio Grip Tech Expo on Saturday at Local 80 in Burbank. That would be Saturday, March 8th. And then, of course, at Hot Red Cameras for the March 11th event, the Sony and Betty event. So, yeah, you can find me at any of these places.
Excellent. Excellent. So who do we need to thank this week?
We have to thank our usual producer, Alana Cody, who, of course, is doing a great job lining up all kinds of great interviews and making sure that this show keeps running. Yeah. We got to thank Kay Zalatrachi, who, of course, composed all the music that you heard in the show. And we have to thank our new editor.
Wait, our what?
We have a new editor, Charles Nix. So Charles, I think maybe we could call him Charlie. Charlie Nix is cutting this episode, and he's going to take over the duties from Michael Indispensable Dispenza. And yeah, he's joined the team. So
well, welcome, Charlie. Sorry to see you go, Michael.
You know, Michael's got plenty to keep him busy. So. But Charlie's going to step in. He's going to hold the reins, and yeah, if there's a bunch of weird problems with this episode, which I'm sure there won't be, but you know, we only have Charlie to blame. I think it's going to be great, though. I'm excited to have Charlie on the team.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Charlie. I can't wait to meet you. Never met him.
All right. So Ben, do you want to take us out?
Would I ever? Thanks for tuning in.
Well done.
This has been the Cinematography Podcast, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory on the web at hotrodcameras.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on iTunes and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.